You're watching Swipe, coming up on this week's show.
Driverless cars, the latest on one of the most exciting emerging technologies. Assisted driving. I keep my foot off the brake to see how this car intervenes. And if there's a gamer in your life, we might just have some Christmas list ideas in our games review.
Welcome to Swipe. There's a theme to this week's show. It's cars, driverless ones. You see, we realised autonomous vehicles get talked about a lot, but we're in danger of losing track of all the developments. A little bit later, I'll be trying out some auto brake technology. But before then, Stu has been taking a look at just how road-ready driverless cars really are.
If the push for driverless cars is a race, several winners could cross the finish line. You've seen the product launches, but behind the scenes, what problems are driverless car specialists trying to solve?
I would say the biggest challenge is on the testing side of things. If you think of the scenarios in which a driverless car may be put, there's so many things and random events that can go on. How can you design and write the software to handle all of those events? Most of them currently unforeseen.
A lot of testing is being done in simulators. Google alone covers the equivalent of 3 million miles every day in virtual testing. The company's vehicles are also out in the real world. This is how Google's driverless cars see our roads, and they may have come across the ultimate unforeseen scenario.
Our vehicles were driving through Mountain View, and this is what we encountered. This is a woman in an electric wheelchair chasing a duck in circles on the road. Now, it turns out there is nowhere in the DMV handbook that tells you how to deal with that. But our vehicles were able to encounter that, slow down, and drive safely.
That's the head of Google's Driverless Cars project, who calls the human motorist a bug that needs to be fixed. That's because around 94% of road accidents can be blamed on human error. Perhaps you grudgingly accept that driverless cars are going to become commonplace in the near future, but that you won't want one. Well, that's not the plan.
Letting somebody loose in a car to drive themselves, I think eventually will be considered to be not worth the risk. And I would expect that as autonomous vehicles become widespread, that it become a privilege to drive a car. But much the same as you might have a motorbike for fun, or even a horse for fun, and you'd have a car that you took out for a spin, and there'd be places that people knew you were going to do that, and they wouldn't go there unless they were willing to take the risks if you'd be on the road.
A recent survey found 39% of people in the UK would consider using a self-driving vehicle. That number rises to 62% among young professionals living in cities.
Driverless cars seem to be the next step to make people's lives that much easier. Driving will maintain its place in the hearts of a lot of people, but in terms of the more boring side, such as dropping the children off at school or going to the supermarket, automated driving will take over because nobody loves doing that part of driving.
The pilot projects continue with problems to solve around security and insurance, but experts say you could be using a fully autonomous car as soon as 2035. Stuart Duggan, Sky News.
Still to come on Swipe.
An open worlds fest in our games review. Holly looks at Just Cause 3 and Xenoblade Chronicles X.
But first, here's a roundup of some of this week's other tech news.
Samsung's Galaxy S6 Edge has picked up more prizes. It's been named Smartphone of the Year and Gadget of the Year at the Stuff Magazine Awards. Apple won 3 prizes, although the iPhone missed out.
I see you stand like greyhounds in the slips.
If you've ever wanted to feel like a Shakespearean actor on the stage, a new project from Google could make that happen. The company's been working with cultural institutions like the Royal Shakespeare Company. You can now see interactive 360-degree views of performances like this famous speech from Henry V.
Cry God for Harry, England, and Sir George!
Introducing Uber Pool.
Uber has a new ride-sharing service for Londoners. The company says Uber Pool saves you 25% on each journey by pairing you up with someone going the same way. You only pay for your part of the journey. And if you're worried about privacy, only your first name is shared with the other passenger. And a new gadget that lets you interact with your pets while you're away from home has come to the UK. The Petsy Treat Cam allows you to see and speak to your pet remotely. You can even give them a treat and take photos to share on social media.
Now, it doesn't matter how techy your car is, accidents can still happen, which is why I've been having a go on some auto brake technology. What do we do? How does this work?
Okay, so we're sat in a Volvo V60 which has got a city safety system fitted to it, and that uses a sensor behind the screen here to scan the road ahead, looking for objects that are going to cause you a problem if you're not paying attention to the road. So these are things where it will brake for you if you're not braking.
Right, and this is our target, or
yeah, so we're driving a balloon car today, so this is our target, and you're going to drive it at about 10 miles an hour and act as if you're not paying attention.
Okay, right, here we go. I'm just going to take my feet off the pedal completely. Ready? Oh! Ah! That feels so strange. I just want to brake. It feels really, really unnatural. What would happen if I needed to swerve? Because sometimes you don't just need to brake, you need to swerve to avoid something.
That's right. So what this car does, it also gives you a warning. So if you're travelling and there's something in front of you, it gives you a warning first, which gives you time to then look around and see if you can take action to avoid the collision. Or if you still don't take any action.
Was the warning, was it the red light?
That was the red lights that popped up on the screen, and also that was the sound that you heard as well just before the brakes came in. So if there's time for you to avoid it, you can then avoid it. If not, the car will brake for you.
Is there any scenario where the auto brake does not kick in, or is it always there?
It's always there, but it won't kick in if it thinks you're paying attention. So
right.
If it thinks you're in the loop and controlling the vehicle, so if you're steering and you're braking and you're accelerating yourself.
So it can feel me steering, and it
right.
knows I'm wide awake and paying attention, hopefully.
But if you're not steering, it thinks, oh, there's a problem here, I'm going to brake for you.
This is a traditional car, it's not a driverless car, but this is driverless technology. So is this just a way of kind of making people more familiar with driverless technology so that one day we might all be in driverless cars and that will seem a little bit more natural?
That's right. I mean, this is one of the first technologies in sort of the driverless suite of technologies, if you like. So it's almost like drip feeding into cars, the sort of technologies that in future will be commonplace and actually do all of the driving for you. But this is sort of the first building block of those technologies.
It's December, which means it's nearly Christmas, which means it's nearly time for presents. So in this week's Games Review, we're taking a look at some of the latest releases in case you need any gift ideas.
Buildings, bases, and gas stations.
Just Cause 3 is all about blowing things up in as creative way as possible. So you make your way around the Mediterranean island of Medici and you liberate towns and military bases away from an evil, dictator. The story isn't going to blow anyone's minds, but it's a very pretty setting. It's, the kind of blue seas and the fields full of flowers are quite a nice kind of antidote to all the chaos going on. The game enables you to create all this chaos. We're giving you a number of gadgets, vehicles and weapons, and they are a lot of fun. However, you do have to upgrade them, and sometimes it can be a little bit annoying when you just want to, have fun and use whatever's given to you, but you have to wait and unlock things. The missions aren't great. The story missions and the challenges which you need to do to unlock these things can be a little bit repetitive. They get quite boring quite quickly. The game relies on you being able to make your own fun and be creative. However, it doesn't push you in that way enough sometimes, and if you don't have that creative spark, then you might get bored quite quickly. Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Siege is a first-person shooter, and along with the previous games in the series, it's a lot kind of heavier and slower, and a lot more power to it than other games such as COD or Halo. About 4 shots will kill you and you can't regenerate health, so it's quite a difficult game. And because of the mechanics that it has, in the main mode you either play as an attacking team or a defending team, and you have kind of items such as drones which you use to scout and map locations, or you have to put up barricades and defend yourself, so it requires you to be quite tactical and to think very tactically. Now the only problem is, if you're playing offline, there's not a lot here. The enemy AI in offline mode it's not great. They just kind of stand around and it only runs at about 30 frames per second and it can feel a bit jarring. However, if you do have that group of friends or you like playing online with a mic, there is a lot to be found in the game.
Shooting star! Lock this!
So Xenoblade Chronicles X is an absolutely epic game. It's based in the world of Mira and it is absolutely stunning. It's full of all these kind of alien creatures and amazing environments, and it's absolutely huge. It can be quite daunting though if you're not familiar with RPGs, particularly Japanese RPGs. There's a lot of stats, colour coordination, a lot of numbers flying about the screen. There's a lot to get your head around. Even just learning how to figure out the map is quite an effort in itself. And it takes a while to get going. You know, you need to put in about 20 hours before the story and the game really kicks off and lets you kind of explore and do your own thing. However, if you do have the time and the effort to put into this game, you are rewarded one of the best RPGs on the Wii U. It's incredibly detailed, the combat is very fun and has a lot to it. There's a lot to really sink your teeth into. So if you do have the time available, I would highly recommend Xenoblade Chronicles X. Square Rave is a game developed by Adam Hay. It's on iOS, and it's a very fun little game. It blends some of the gameplay elements from rhythm action games and Snake. So you have to control a white square, and as you move the white square around the grid, it leaves a trail behind it, and you can't crash into the trail. You've got to put it over blue squares before a bar on the screen gets to the other end of the screen. The music is really good, actually. The whole point is that it's kind of in time with the music. It's kind of electro, rave music. It's really enjoyable. When you first look at the game, it might be a little bit confusing. You know, you think, what are you meant to do? However, it's very intuitive. Once you start, you really get a hang of it very quickly. And there are 6 levels overall to complete, and you're constantly wanting to beat your score. So although it's very frantic and it's kind of overwhelming in some points, it's very intuitive and very fun. You know, it's very fast-paced and very addictive, actually.
That's it for this week's show. I'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.